Like to really like drive that feeling of like that dread, like, oh, I need to go, I'm about to fucking shit my pants. We've made a lot of trailers here at Coffee Stain over the years working on Satisfactory, and I've always wanted to make a video sort of explaining the process in how we make trailers. So today we're doing exactly that. I'm gonna walk you through the process from ideation to post-production throughout the entire thing, and we're gonna have a jolly old time, so let's dive into it. So in this video, I'd like to highlight like all the aspects to like how we make these trailers, like how we make them, why we make them, and when we make them, to sort of give you insight as to like how much work goes into these trailers. And we're going to be using the release date trailer for 1.0 or the toilet flush trailer as sort of an example or a use case for this entire video. The reason for that is because I was the one directing that one, so I know the ins and outs of that trailer specifically. It's also a somewhat recent trailer, so hopefully most things will be fresh in my mind as to like why and how we did things. And it's also a short trailer with very few cuts in it, so it should be sort of easy to sort of demonstrate. So let's dive into it. So when it comes to making trailers, the first step for us is always ideation. The first thing really is to figure out sort of what is the purpose of the trailer that you're about to make. Because most of our trailers serve very different purposes, and they also have very different audiences. Some trailers are there to build hype for new players who've never seen Satisfactory before. Some trailers we made are there to like explain the game for people who have heard of Satisfactory but are interested and want to learn more. Whenever we made our update trailers, those are more catered towards our existing community and to sort of highlight like all the new things and give you, make you excited to want to play the update basically. And there's a ton of other reasons as to why you'd want to make a specific trailer. Like sometimes it's there to announce a game and make people interested in it. It might be also there to like kind of bring in investment to a game that you're working on, or get hype and build hype and all that stuff. Sometimes I get the question of like, why are game developers making these cinematic trailers when like there's no gameplay footage, so we have no idea what the actual game is about? And they have different purposes. Cinematic trailers usually like that are there to make you excited about the concept and also to bring in some investment to studios or even bring in talent wanting to work on some games. So yeah, there's many different reasons as to why you'd want to make a trailer for your game. And one thing when it comes to our update trailers is that we put a lot of effort into our update trailers. Like sometimes they take months to make. The 1.0 release trailer took more than a year to make, I think. And it might be strange when you think about it because the trailer is just like a 1 minute, 2 minute video. Like why would you want to spend so many resources on making such a like small little thing? But they actually have a pretty significant impact on, how we market our game and like how people are able to sort of, take a look at our game and see what it's all about. And the thing for us is like we put a lot of effort into our updates, and we want that to be reflected in our trailers as well, because if we have a trailer that you can tell we put a lot of effort into, then that will also signify that like, oh, you probably put a lot of effort into the update as well. So that's why it's so important for us to have the sort of the quality that we have for our trailers whenever we release them. Because it's kind of wasted if you put a lot of effort into your game and you don't put a lot of effort into showcasing that game or, putting that effort into your trailer, then people are gonna see that and it's not going to reflect good on it. So you really want to match, the quality of what you're making. And there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration when you're in this ideation process of like figuring out like what is the purpose of the trailer. There are questions you need to answer, such as like, do people know about your game? Like, who is the trailer for? And when you're figuring out the purpose of the trailer, you also need to sort of figure out like, what is the context behind the trailer? Like, is this a thing where people know about the game beforehand, or is this like a reveal trailer of sorts? Is this a game that's been out for a long time, so people already know about the title? All these kind of things kind of matter when you decide like how you make the trailer and like what's in the trailer and whatnot. And context is also important when it comes to the trailer in like, how is it displayed? Like, is this supposed to be at like a big event with like a ton of other reveal trailers as well? Or is it just supposed to live on your YouTube channel or like on social media? These also impact the trailer a little bit. For instance, if a trailer is just supposed to live on social media, then it's really, really, really important that the first like 15 seconds really catch you. So like if you're posting on social media, it's harder to make like a cinematic trailer, for instance, where you have like a company logo that fades in for like 10 seconds or whatever. Like on social media, people people typically click away if they're not hooked by within, you know, a short amount of time. But like at events show and stuff like that, that's a whole different ball game, and then you can sort of create a different type of trailer, you know, depending on who you are and you know, what the context of it is, I guess. So it's really important to figure out the purpose. Like, is this a reveal trailer? Is this an announcement trailer? Is it supposed to showcase your game? Do you want people to be like blown away by some technical element of it? Or is it like a cinematic trailer where you're more aiming to like evoke a feeling, or, you know, make people interested or excited? So at the end of the day, it's really, really, really important in the ideation process that you really figure out like what is the main purpose of the trailer. Because like I said, context and effect matters a lot for trailers. Like if you want people to talk about your trailer or talk about the game, then you need to sort of hit certain beats for it to make sense. So once we figured out like the purpose or know why we're making this trailer or yada, 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 we start concepting sort of and start coming up with ideas as to like what will happen in the trailer and like what is the format of the trailer. And yeah, like based on the purpose of the trailer, that really dictates what happens in it. If we're making a trailer where we want people to sort of see something cool and be blown away, we might do it in one way. And if we want to make a trailer where we're like explaining the game and, you know, talking about the game, it's one thing. For instance, we made a trailer a long time ago where it's basically me just explaining the game from start to finish in like a goofy way. That was one way to make that trailer, and that trailer was developed in a certain way because we wanted to do that.
And it's up to you to utilize all the resources you can find on that planet to create multi-story factories and connect those suckers with conveyor belts to create tasty conveyor belt spaghetti so that you can produce all these cool items like that thing and whatever that is.
And some other trailers which are more cinematic, like the Update 3 trailer, for instance, you know, that one we really wanted to evoke a feeling and you know, bring the hype in, but also to sort of showcase it in a real setting. So yeah, based on all these like parameters and whatnot, that sort of drives the ideation and the conceptualization of your trailer. And sometimes these ideas come immediately. Sometimes it takes a long time to figure some of these things out. And you know, we usually sit down and brainstorm these ideas and discuss this a lot. And sometimes it's external people coming in and pitching to us for certain ideas. So this varies a lot for us, but usually we just sit down and talk about the purpose and talk about like what could we make. And sometimes it stays in the ideation phase, and sometimes that brings into the next step. So in the case of the announcement trailer, the purpose was obviously we wanted to announce the release date for Satisfactory. We actually also originally were going to announce console in this trailer, but here's the thing too, that also kind of affected the trailer a bit. We didn't know 100% if we could announce console at when we made this trailer because of various different factors. So we needed to design a trailer where we 100% were announcing the release date, and we were like potentially announcing console. So we really needed to fit the trailer in such a way where if we needed to cut the console portion of it, then it wouldn't really affect the trailer that much. And for the announcement trailer, we originally were going to have it at an event. We were originally pitching to have this trailer be showcased at an event. The reason why we wanted to have it at an event is because we wanted to catch people that may have heard of Satisfactory but didn't want to play it because they were waiting for 1.0. So we really wanted to like hit the old drum and let everyone know that like, hey, 1.0 is coming out soon and it's coming out at this time. So get your shit together. And when you have a trailer at an event, it's really important to think about the context here, right? Because we're showcasing this trailer in a block of many trailers. So there's a ton of other games that are doing sort of the same thing that you're doing. And some games are really, really big. Like if Call of Duty was at the same event that we were, you know, most people would probably talk about Call of Duty, or maybe not, but like, you know, some other big game. You know, if Naughty Dog announces their new game, then who will remember the Satisfactory date reveal trailer, you know? So it was really important for us to like hook people in a block of other trailers to make, you know, this trailer kind of memorable. So for this event, we pitched two trailers, actually. We pitched the regular 1.0 trailer that we released with 1.0, and we pitched this announcement trailer. And we made this pitch for the release, the one we actually made with the toilet flush, after the event was like, it's too generic. Like it's a cool trailer and all that, but there's no exciting new, you know, unveil or anything like that. So they didn't think it was too interesting for us to have that there. So that's why we sort of came back with them with this pitch. We're like, hey, but what about it's this stupid trailer? And in the end, we didn't end up having the trailer on at that event, but we really liked this idea of this trailer, so we decided to pursue it on our own instead. And the idea for the announcement trailer came like that. Actually, so me and Linus is like our main trailer guy. And I'm just like sort of the stand-in trailer guy that comes in here and there and make trailers. We basically came to each other at the same time with the same idea, and we were like, we should do this. So like for the announcement trailer, like the idea of this trailer, came to be immediately. Like the thing with the announcement trailer that we thought would make it stand out was the fact that we're kind of spoofing and parroting how other trailers were made. And that's sort of how we wanted to stick out or stand out at this event. Because like the whole sort of premise of this trailer was really that like we wanted to highlight something really, really stupid, which is the toilet flush functionality in the game, right? We wanted to highlight something really, really dumb and then have like all this cool stuff in the background. If you know Satisfactory, you will know that like you're not really interested in the toilet flush, you're interested in everything else surrounding the toilet flush announcement, right? And for people who don't know about Satisfactory, they will just go like, what the shit was that? So like that was really the goal with this trailer, is like we had this running joke with our community, and you can argue that like, yeah, but only people in your community will get this joke. But I really thought that like, no, people will see the trailer and be confused. And if people don't know about Satisfactory, they will be interested in learning more about Satisfactory. And it will be easy to write about this because it will make dumb headlines, because it'd be like, Satisfactory is adding toilet flush. And it's like, that's easy to write about. It will make for sensational news. And it will draw people in and make people interested. And everybody will know that 1.0 is coming out and all these like other implications that come with that. The announcement trailer, in my opinion, was such a good like instigator of the path to come for 1.0, because it had all these elements that really played into it. The other thing with this trailer is that we had a really short amount of time to make it. So we had to sort of reallocate resources that were really already working on a lot of other stuff for the main trailer and also the game itself. So it was rough making this trailer. I basically made this trailer in like full time in 2 months time, while doing everything else at the same time. Don't recommend doing this, but sometimes there's like opportunities in game dev constantly, and like we really like this idea, and it in the end it was really worth it because it really paid off, like the amount of interest we got from this trailer, and it was like the fastest YouTube video we've like in terms of views we've ever had on the YouTube channel. So like, and I think there were over like 150 articles written about this announcement trailer. So it really paid off making this trailer. But I do not recommend doing it the way we did it, because holy shit, it was rough, but we got it done. So yeah, for us, the trailer would convey like the release date for Satisfactory. We would show new content, with the joke being that like we're highlighting something that's, kind of useless, which was the toilet flush, but everyone would know about all the cool stuff behind it. All the new parts and all the new buildings, and people would be really excited about that. Our community is really, really good at picking up the pieces and figuring things out. So we didn't feel that we needed to really explain too much with this trailer, because people were gonna see, the new buildings and see the new parts and being able to piece things together. And they really did. There was so many videos made from community based on that trailer. Where people were figuring things out, and it came in waves too. Like people figured some things out and they were like, wait a second, and then they made like follow-up videos on those follow-up videos, and it was one of my favorite times working in this game ever, seeing just like how people were unpacking this trailer and creating all these like conversation pieces, and it sparked so much joy and so much interest in the community for this trailer. So that was really, really cool. So now that we have an idea, we have a concept for a trailer, we start going into the pre-production phase of things. And this is sort of where we try to figure out like, how are we making this trailer? So is it an in-house trailer, as in like we're making this trailer? Or is it someone else making this trailer for us? I think every single trailer we've made have been in-house. and been created like by the team, so to speak. There's been a couple of external partners that have helped us out with some scenes, and they've been super helpful. So for instance, the opening shots for the 1.0 trailer was made by an external studio, and that was really nice, like offboarding some of that work to them, so that we can focus on like more the nitty-gritty things that only we at Coffee Stain and working on Satisfactory would know. For the most part, Linus is the one who's making most of the trailers here at Coffee Stain, but sometimes I also jump in and create and make some of them. So like the Update 6 trailer, for instance, and the announcement trailer. So one thing that's really, really important for us for trailers is audio design. Almost every trailer that we made have always been like audio and music comes first. Usually what we do is we set a tone or a vibe with our music, and then we sort of build a trailer behind that and try to like, you know, make the trailer fit the music, so to speak. But sometimes we have composers like Dennis, who've made a lot of songs from Ghostwood Empire, write us custom songs. And there's a bit of a trade-off there. When you license a song, you can usually take a song that people already know about, so they already have like a connection to that. But the issue with that usually is that they can be really expensive, and you can also only use them in like the situation that you're licensing for. So like if we license a song, we can only really use that song for uploading a video on our YouTube channel, and that's it. Whereas when we have like composers that make something custom for us, we can sort of make a deal better and like have it so that we have more, you know, lenience in terms of like where we can use it and how we can use it and stuff like that. So for the 1.0 trailer, for instance, we originally was going to use a licensed song, but it was hella expensive. And it really limited us in terms of like how we could use it, and like the terms of that license meant that we could only really use it on YouTube once, and that was it. So it was a lot better to just have Ghostwood Empire write a track, and I'm glad we went with this route actually, because I think that song is a banger. And the process there is usually like that we, you know, send them the composer a couple of tracks or like some references that we have, just to get the vibe going and all that stuff, and they'll create something and then we'll iterate on that stuff. And for the announcement trailer, because we were so tight on time making that trailer from when we came up with the concept versus like when we actually needed to finish it, we decided to reuse the song that we had for the Update 3 trailer. But we did ask Dennis to tweak it a little bit so it would better fit the timing and all that stuff for the announcement trailer. So it was a little bit tricky to make it work, but I think we got it done. And it also ended up being that we had to reuse, you know, that trailer. It was the same thing, like we wanted to make a trailer that's dumb and like epic, you know? So we took like the most epic song that we could find, and that was really that Update 3 trailer song. So once we have the song, we start sitting down and making storyboards, which are basically one of our artists sitting down and drawing up the frames, showing sort of like what is going to be in each shot and which shots are going to be in the trailer. So when we make storyboards, we usually sit and discuss first, like this is what we want to entail, and then our artist sits down and draws it, and then we go through all these shots and discuss like, you know, does it make sense in this order, or should this be in the shot? Should we change this and this and this? So the goal of this really is that at the end of pre-production, we need to know exactly how many shots we need and which shots we are making. So that we can better estimate like how much time it takes for us to make this. You know, if we need a lot of shots with a lot of big factories, that's gonna take a long time versus, you know, just close-ups of the Pioneer or something like that. And also if like the shots are very intricate, that also plays a big part in like how much budget we need to spend to be able to make these trailers. And there's also elements like, do we need custom animation and shit like that? So like storyboarding is such a powerful tool to be able to figure all this stuff out. So for the announcement trailer, we knew which songs we needed. And when we make storyboards, we also typically try and put them in the timeline in like Premiere or something where we can sort of have it rolling and like see and get timing and stuff like that. And since we knew which song we were gonna use for this trailer, we could just put that song in there and sort of play it out and see how it goes and like see how much, you know, each frame can be on screen at certain amounts of time. So once we have that storyboard trailer, we usually try and do a pass where we do like a little bit of a block out in editor, where we sort of try and like make a quick mock-up of all the shots that we need to make and just place some basic elements in there just to get a feel for what the framing will be like in editor, if there are any limitations in game that we need to take into consideration. And we can also take the Pioneer model if we have like characters doing stuff and place them in the world and you know, get some poses in here and there and, you know, see how things flows. And then you play these animations in the engine. Unreal Engine also has this tool called Control Rig. So what Control Rig does is it basically takes the rig that you created and it adds a rig on top of that so you can control the rig in engine. Control Rig. It makes sense, doesn't it? This is a really, really, really powerful tool from my point of view, because I'm not an animator, but I am able to create animations in engine in the scenes and whatnot. And this is really, really good for when we're making the block out, because I can just take the Pioneer and I can create the poses in the sequence itself really, really, really quickly. In fact, I actually made the entire intro sequence in the Update 6 trailer with Control Rig. So it is totally possible to make the entire trailer using Control Rig, but it does have some drawbacks and whatnot, which makes it more suitable for like these kind of basic blockouts things. But it is possible to make a full thing in sequencer in Unreal Engine using Control Rig. And yeah, I can't tell you how much I love that tool, because it makes things so nice for me as creating these kind of cinematics in engine. And in the storyboard trailer, we can also use references to sort of indicate like what we're going for with certain scenes when it comes to emotions or you know, movement and whatnot. The running sequence in the announcement trailer, for instance, is heavily based on one scene from Sherlock Holmes where they're running through the woods. We also had a lot of inspiration from Wes Anderson with like the zoom ins and all that stuff, and how we compose the shots and whatnot. So whatever information you can convey in these like storyboard trailers and the blockout trailers from you as a director to the rest of the team, the better, so that more people sort of understand your vision as to what you're creating. All right, so now that we're done with pre-production, you should have a list of all the shots that you need to make. From there, you can sort of pinpoint like who's doing what do we need to make? Do we need to make a custom animation for this shot? Can we make this in engine? Do we need something external? Blah, blah, blah. At this point, you should have gotten all your planning done, and that's when we head into production. And this is where the grind starts, at least for us when we're making Satisfactory stuff, because for our trailers, we usually have a lot of factories in our shots, and making these factories take a really, 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 really long time. When we make trailers, I kid you not, I think like 80% of the time working on trailers is just building factories. There's so much effort that goes into that. We also have a tendency to keep like upping ourselves. I think in the beginning, we always made like very simplistic factories, and now we have like these citywide factories. And it's kind of your fault, honestly, because we see all these cool builds within the community, and we see like, wow, that looks so cool. We need to sort of try and emulate that. And yeah, it takes so much time. And as an example here for the 1.0 trailer, the big factory, like at the end of that trailer, that one took Linus 242 hours to build just for those shots. So a lot of time and effort goes into this for those like seconds of on-screen time. Now you might be wondering, like, why don't you just reuse like save files from community, or you know, like ask someone else to build a factory and then just, you know, use that in your trailer. And you can do that sometimes, and we've done that in the past, but for a lot of times when we're making something very specific, you kind of want to build the factory around the shot rather than trying to build a shot around a factory, if that makes sense. Like when you're composing these shots, we have a very like specific framing in mind, or a very specific composition in mind. It's very, very, very difficult to place that in an existing factory. Usually what we need to do is we need to build a factory around the shot. And it's really frustrating because it takes a lot of time. But we do get a lot better results. In fact, for the announcement trailer, there's like 4 different factories for like the same scene. Like there's one factory when you see like the establishing shot with the coffee stain logo. And then when we're closer to the ground, that's a different factory that I rebuilt. And then when the Pioneer starts running, that's a different factory. And then there's like a different factory based on like which angle you're looking from. Like when we have something very specific in mind, we have to sort of build the factories around the shots. So let's take a look at the announcement trailer shots and sort of talk about them as well. So here's what the game looks like in engine. Usually when we build factories for our shots, we usually just boot up the game like regular and you know, have like advanced game settings on and unlimited build mode and stuff like that, and just build away. Sometimes it's nice to build an engine, but the engine is a lot more expensive to run than just the game in general. So I at least try to avoid that as much as possible. But sometimes you do like need references. Like sometimes it's nice. For instance, this character down here, for instance, I can move this around and place it wherever I need it to, instead of, you know, being in the game and trying to like place things down and figure things out and figure scale out and all that stuff. So when we're working on shots, we use a tool called the sequencer in Unreal Engine. And the sequencer is basically, you know, being able to create a timeline and be able to have things move in time and whatnot. And this is what that tool looks like in Unreal Engine. It's basically like it looks like any kind of timeline tool where you have like a playhead and whatnot. And you can't see all the gizmos and whatnot when we're in play mode. So like usually you can see like where the camera is in 3D space and whatnot. So you'll just have to imagine that. But basically I can like create the camera here, you know, and I can like see like what it looks like when I'm playing and moving it around. Right now there's a lot of optimization running. So for instance, the building lags a lot, as you may notice. But yeah, here I can basically, you know, get an overlay of what the shot will look like and, you know, move the camera around and place it in the world. I can even like move around and it will save this. So like this will be a really strange animation here. So like, whoa, look at that, you know, stuff like that. So this is the tool that we use when we create all the shots for our trailers. It is very nice to use a sequencer because it's very deterministic. Using the sequencer, we can really like play in sequence and create these kind of shots. Sometimes we record straight from gameplay. So like we'll play the game and record footage, and that's really useful when we have like multiplayer sessions when we like want to showcase like first person shots of things happening and very specific things going on that are a little bit more complex to be able to create in a sequencer, because in the sequencer you have to like manually create all these things. For instance, in the opening shot for the Update 6 trailer, you know, the car coming in and stopping, I had to manually animate that. Sometimes it's nice to just like play the game and just have it come in and break. But when you do that, it's a little bit more tricky to get things timed properly. So working in the sequencer is really like the preferred way of doing things. Because when you work in the sequencer, you know that you get the shot. Otherwise, we'd have to like get recording sessions running. And if you have multiplayer, you need multiple people. So obviously that's a little bit tricky. We actually have an example of that with the 1.0 trailer when we made the shot for the trucks coming into frame.
Oh, that looks so good. Oh, this was the take. Guys, this was the take. This was the best take we've done. Holy shit.
So yeah, here you have it. Here's the scene. We can actually fly around a bit. You may have noticed that the logo for Coffee Scene is an actual physical thing in the world. We decided to do this instead of superimposing it in post because we felt like this saved a lot of time. We also had more, it was easier to place it. And it's also stuff like this where like the manta, for instance, over here, like that's also animated. So I can control exactly where it is in the frame and whatnot. And same thing with like all the planets and all that stuff. I can position them perfectly in the world. You can see that like I have this planet over here. This is actually scripted. So I can actually like move this around so that it's perfectly in frame. So like here I set the actual like position of it and whatever, like how it's rotated in the screen and where it is and whatnot. So like all these things are very meticulously planned out for the sequencer to get the shot that we want. And the main thing I want to draw your attention to here is like the factory looks like this for this opening shot, and in the next shot it looks completely different. Like suddenly there's all this thing here. Continuation wise, it doesn't make much sense, but this shot is like really nice, you know. And yeah, it's really important for us to like get the composition down, because like in the heat of the moment, you're not gonna like see these two shots and be like, actually the factory doesn't look exactly the same. I mean, you will, but that's not really important. The important thing is that the shots tell what they're supposed to tell. And in this case, it's the Pioneer going, oh shit, my little tummy. And then we have this close up of the Pioneer going like that. And then we switch back and the Pioneer like looks around, and obviously we have the shot where does the zoom in. Maybe I'll load that in. and then the Pioneer runs away. And like, here's the block out of that shot where we just get like poses and whatever and try and figure out. And you know, they're kind of similar. Like they don't have the exact same composition, but you know, you get the point, and especially this run cycling. Perfect. And there's a lot of stuff going on as well. Like for instance, we've added a bunch of lights here to like make the background look nice, and like this purple light here, which like comes from I already forgot what this product is called, but like we try to spruce it up a little bit and you know, add a couple of lights here and there to make it look nicer, and you know, add a little bit of depth of field and that kind of stuff to make it look nice. Once we've finished all these shots and we have them ready, what we do is we just plug them into this like kind of batch program where we just then run them and render them. So we take advantage of the Unreal Engine render pipeline, which means that it will sort of like boot up the game and then it will render out the sequence. Now the cool thing with the render pipeline is that it is possible to make sure that the game, you know, you always get perfect like 60 FPS. This trailer was made in 24 FPS because 24 is usually like a little bit more, gets you a little bit more like cinematic feel rather than like gameplay feel. But the 1.0 trailer was made in 60 FPS because we wanted that to like actually look like the game and play sort of like the game in a way. It wasn't as important that it was cinematic as much as, you know, showcasing the game itself. And the thing with the render pipeline as well is that like, you know, everything that we do for our trailers, they're all in-game. Like we're using in-game assets. It's not like it is pre-rendered, but we're not like adding things that you wouldn't be able to have yourself in the game. Now, granted, we are, you know, using the render pipeline to be able to have like no loading, for instance, so like everything looks crisp in the background, making sure that all animations run perfectly. You know, we might have humongous factories that are gonna run perfectly smooth in 60 FPS when you render, but maybe not on like the same machine. And this is a little bit of like a tricky balancing act that we have to play with constantly, because we want our trailers to sort of reflect what you're gonna get when you play the game, but you obviously won't have like all this depth of field and all the cinematic stuff. So it's a line we have to draw somewhere, you know, as to how detailed we can make it look. But theoretically, it is possible to make the game look exactly like they do in the trailers. But you know, realistically, most people probably won't have, you know, as nice looking, you know, settings for all this stuff and have it run this smooth. There's an argument to say like, oh, this is a little bit deceiving, and I totally get that. This is something that we constantly have to think about, especially also when we're doing like post-production and doing color grading. We also try to, you know, we want to do a little bit of color grading, but sometimes it looks too off and then people notice that. And, you know, yeah, you need to like look at our trailers and be like, yeah, that is the game mostly. We don't want to deceive anyone, but we do want to make it look as nice as it can possibly be. And like I mentioned before, like all these animations that I'm playing right now, they've been created in Maya by our animator. And then I created like the mock-up animation in Control Rig. But at the end of the day, it's our animator sitting with Maya and then importing it into Unreal Engine to make it fit and whatnot. And then we have like this shot with the Pioneer running, all the stuff in the foreground and whatnot. And yeah, there's a lot going on in this shot. For this, I've added like particles in the background. So like when the Pioneer jumps over the thing, for instance, you can see the particles in the background fly off. They look really nice with the bokeh here, the depth of field, and there's like slow motion going on. And then like this you get like the particles from the hand playing here. So you see the smoke here going off. Her hand is on fire. One really nice thing with the sequencer is that it's really easy for me to compose with all the elements that we have in the game and sort of put them together. So for instance, this shot where the Pioneer is running, like the regular sprint animation here is just the running animation from the game that I've just sped up a little bit. It's been sped up by like 15% basically. And then when she jumps, that's like a custom animation that was made with just the jump in. And then I just like tweak it and time it into the run sequence in the sequencer, as you can see. So you can see here, like, right, how it weighs into, you know, and I can move this around. So like if I wanted the Pioneer to jump earlier, I could move this over here, and you can see her like fading into the jump here and completely missing the mark. So it's really easy to like tweak these things in Engine and like, you know, pinpoint animations and whatnot. And the same thing here, like she's running and then we have a separate slide animation here. So I basically just take like all these different animations and just like take what I need and put them in the timeline and time them up and just pick and choose what I need for the animation in the whole sequence. When you're playing the game in general, we do have a bunch of effects here like going off when, you know, it's building stuff, but we needed a bit more. We needed to juice it up a little bit more for the trailer. So I added a ton of like these spark effects that I made myself, custom by the way, to like better and like different angles so it shows up better in the shot. You'd be surprised how much you need to cheat to make it look good. And like for this shot here, I've added like VFX here to the right, so you see like little sparks. There's also a ton of lighting change here. So there's a ton of like lights that turn on as she gets closer to it. And like there's a spotlight on the hub that also like emphasizes the exposure. So I turn down the exposure a bit so that like the hub stands out a little bit more. I add like more chromatic aberration as she gets closer to the hub, like to really like drive that feeling of like that dread, like, oh, I need to go, I'm about to fucking shit my pants, you know? Just like drive that further in, and also doing this like Hitchcock effect where I am panning the camera back, but I'm zooming in, and that gives this like weird feeling where like things in the background become smaller. So you see like these refineries in the background. And it's sort of a similar situation there. Like I had to build these refineries in such a specific location so that they would show up perfectly in frame. So I legit had to set up this composition and then like build and move these factories around to make sure that when you get this Hitchcock effect that like they would move properly and look weird and all that stuff. So yeah, this shot, there's a lot of stuff going on in this shot. And then like as she runs into the frame, we have this other Pioneer reacting to it deadpan. Fun fact, this like running thing here, that's from the block. We didn't change that at all. We thought it was funny if like the turn and this all looked so dumb. So we just kept it. It kind of plays into the whole goofiness of it. Because like really like the whole trailer is so like dramatic up until this shot, and like this shot is just like, this is where, you know, the punchline is. So it's fine if it looks weird and goofy and whatever. And like really when we're making all these shots, like we're just going back and forth constantly with everyone in the trailer task force team, you know, looking at the shots, you know, having artists like draw on it on the frame and be like, it would be nice if you moved this. The composition is a bit weird. We're just like constantly iterating on these shots, not only animation, but also composition and lighting and, you know, all these effects, and just like constantly render out shots and updating like our little walkout video. And eventually, you know, our little temp video that we made with storyboards are replaced with, you know, shots that are in work in progress, and then eventually they're replaced by new shots, and eventually you have a trailer, and just like keep iterating on these things, and eventually you get to the point where you just have a trailer and you know, make adjustments to make sure that the lighting works for the shot. So for instance, here in this shot, I have a little bit of a rim light on the Pioneer to just make her stand out a little bit better against the background, and stuff like that. And we just go through scene by scene and add all these like little tweaks here and there to make sure that everything works. And then once we have all these shots set up in Sequencer, we just put it in the render queue, and then we start the render. And when we start the render, it will sort of apply all these like max settings to the render to make sure that it looks neat, and like it will do its own anti-aliasing pass, so it kind of upscales the image and then renders it at a higher resolution and then downscales it and stuff like that. So we get like maximum quality on the render. And this takes absolutely forever, and it's really stressful because when you're on a tight deadline and you constantly have to wait for renders, it's really stressful. You know, running the game at these like high settings and like loading in so many things is quite taxing on the system. And as an example, the last shot for the 1.0 trailer took 21 hours to render, and it failed twice during that render when we were doing that. And it was really clutch. The final render for that shot was made it was finished on the same day as we released 1.0. So yeah, it's, oh boy, clutch. So for a lot of stuff that we make for the trailers, we usually just use Unreal Engine's tools. We've also made some custom tools for our trailers specifically. So for instance, in the 1.0 trailer, we had this like time lapse running. We actually made a custom time lapse tool to be able to like spawn factories and have them kind of play out as if they were made in the game and we were just recording it, but actually those were made in the sequencer and they were created in Engine. And we also had a similar tool where we were able to like record ourselves running around in first person and then importing that into the sequencer and have it play out as if we were playing to make it, you know, seem natural and seem like actual gameplay. But in truth, it was all made in sequencer. So after all that grind, making all these shots in editor and creating all these sequences and rendering them and whatnot, we take all these clips and we pull them into Premiere and we start editing. And we actually add a little bit of leeway in every clip that we make so that we have some editing power because sometimes a lot of things can actually change in the edit. And sometimes we realize that we need something else or another shot once we start editing it. So it's nice to like edit as you go. In fact, like we almost have like an edit ready before we even have all these shots rendered, just so we know like timing wise what we want to do and whatnot. So we edit it up and tighten it up. And once we get to the point where we can freeze the edit, as in like say like, okay, we're not touching the edit anymore. This is when we send it off to the audio people so that they can add audio design and, you know, tweak up anything that may be needed with music and whatnot. And let me tell you this, when you've made the edit and you send it over to the audio people, when you get the audio back, that's when it starts feeling like a trailer. Like audio design adds so much to the trailers. They're so underutilized in a lot of stuff, I would say. Audio is so important in anything, because without audio, our trailers are kind of lame, I would say. Like it really needs the music and the sounds and everything to make it all come together. So yeah, it's such a gratifying part of the process when you've made all this stuff and you send it off to them and then you get audio passes back and it's like, oh, now it feels like a trailer. And then we have a little bit of an iteration there, like tweaking up anything that we want to change or any audio effects that we want to add. Sometimes we also do a little bit of a color grade at this point where we, you know, maybe tweak some saturation values in here and there, or do something else that is needed, like a post-processing effect or something. But for the most part, we try not to do too much because, like I said before, we typically want the trailers to sort of look like the game. So we don't want to, you know, change too much. I found sometimes when we made too harsh color grades in the past, people have commented like, oh, the game looks different now. And we don't want that. We want the trailer to reflect what the game looks like so that, you know what you're getting. And last but not least, we add these like title cards or end cards that actually have a lot of effort put into them as well. Almost every update we've made have had some kind of like really neat like design to the title of each update to make them look good, and they also animate well and that kind of stuff. And for the toilet flush, we want to make this like dumb dun 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 toilet flush, letters flowing in, letters flying in and crushing the thing, and like cool sound effects and whatever, and time it to the music, and yeah, really neat. And the titles and like all this like cool graphics, they're usually made in After Effects by one of our UI artists. And that is the entire process of how we create trailers here at Coffee Stain, all the way from ideation up until the point where it reaches your screen. So thank you so much for sitting down and watching this video. And I also want to mention that this is actually going to be the last video that I make here on this channel. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone watching my videos over the years on this channel. And until I see you all again, take care. All right, let's get out of here.